Star Trek, Starfleet Academy, Aftershock, Chapter 1. Leonard H. McCoy heaved a sigh and sunk his bony frame into a plush armchair. It was too plush, because too many Starfleet cadets had sunk into it over the years. A spring stuck him in the rump, which only added to his grumpiness. He bolted to his feet and set his electronic clipboard on the table. McCoy looked a bit odd standing there in his gray cadet jumpsuit with a white bathrobe over his shoulders, but he always found the dormitory lounge to be cold.
Heck, all of San Francisco is cold to this southern boy.
It was late. His roommate was snoring, and McCoy had to study for an exam in metabolic stasis procedures. Weird instruments, keeping people alive indefinitely. It wasn't his favorite kind of medicine, and he was worried about tomorrow's test. McCoy wasn't a doctor yet, just a medical student. He was a transfer student, too, so he was a little older than most of the new cadets at Starfleet Academy. He did fine in his studies, but he still didn't feel part of the Academy lifestyle. So many of the younger cadets wanted to be explorers and starship captains. They knew exactly what they wanted, but McCoy just wanted to survive day by day. Cadets were dropping out of the Academy med school every day because it was tougher than regular schools. He must have been crazy to come here. Also, McCoy hated to admit that he was homesick. He was from a little town in Georgia, and he hadn't been home in several years, but he was going home over the winter break, just one more week to go. McCoy could see the old Civil War monument in the town square, the Spanish moss hanging from the oaks, and the red clay banks of the lake. His dad would be catching lots of fat catfish and bluegills by now. He wanted to be there, helping him catch, clean, and eat those whoppers. It was hard to imagine that he would get 2 whole weeks off from his crushing schedule. Thoughts of fried catfish and long naps on the porch kept him going through this last terrible week of exams. McCoy's homesick daydream was interrupted by Hippolyta, a big, hairless Delosian. He rushed through the lobby and pointed at the cadet.
"Good, you're still up."
"Why is that good?" grumbled McCoy.
"I'd rather be asleep."
"Stay awake, McCoy." The Delosian charged off. McCoy just shook his head. Everybody at the academy called everybody by their last name, so he was beginning to think of himself as McCoy instead of Leonard. It was just one more adjustment he had to make to life at the academy. He had finally settled into a safe spot on the sofa and was picking up his clipboard when a squad of cadets burst into the lounge. Hippolyta was in the lead, along with Wainwright, a big blonde cadet.
"Okay, McCoy," said Hippolyta, "you're with us."
"I'm with you?" drawled McCoy.
"What on earth are you talking about?"
Wainwright stepped forward. "Come on, McCoy. The freshman dorm has challenged us to a game of touch football. Our honor is on the line." McCoy sat up at the mention of football, a fine old Southern tradition. It wasn't an official sport at Starfleet Academy, but it hung around, refusing to die. Sometimes he played football with the guys when he was trying to fit in, but tonight he had too much studying to do.
"You boys go ahead," said McCoy. "I plan to bed tonight without any broken bones."
"It's just touch football," said Hippolyta, "and we've only got 10 guys. We're one short."
"And we know you can catch the ball," added Wainwright. "You can't do much else, but you can do that."
McCoy scoffed at the offhand compliment.
"You make it sound like lots of fun, but I've got to study."
"Better we play with 10 guys than with him," said another cadet. "He's just a coward." Now McCoy bolted upright in his seat.
"Somebody is going to have to take back that last remark."
There was a chorus of shouts. "Come on and play, McCoy, we need you."
"All right,"
grumbled McCoy as he dragged himself to his feet. He supposed he should be flattered that they asked him to play. Of course, there was nobody else awake at 2 o'clock in the morning. He followed his ragtag teammates out the door down a sidewalk to the campus green. The green was a big field at the center of the academy, a pleasant place to pass a few moments on the way from one class to another. It had a well-lit, well-manicured lawn, perfect for touch football. McCoy shivered in the cool ocean breeze, wishing he was still wearing his bathrobe. Under the moonlight and the flood lamps, he could see the other team starting to gather. Just a bunch of pathetic first-year cadets, he told himself. Nothing to worry about. They weren't really supposed to be doing this, of course. At 2 o'clock in the morning, who was going to find out? In one way, he decided it was good for them to cast off some of the tension that came with final exams. The campus green had seen plenty of impromptu football games over the years. "Okay, the babies are here," said Wainwright, referring to the underclassmen. McCoy sometimes saw women in these games, but not tonight. They had better sense, he guessed. A cocky freshman bounced out of the crowd and pointed at the upperclassmen. "Are we here to play or talk?" "Play, play," came the cry from both sides. That was when McCoy noticed that the team of freshmen had many more than 11 players, while his team had only 11. They could substitute players, and his team couldn't. That was McCoy's first hint that they were going to have trouble with these upstarts. They flipped a coin, and his team lost. 11 players from each side took the field. McCoy watched Travolta line up the ball, step back, and kick off. The game was underway. McCoy whirled around to see 2 freshmen steaming toward him. Both of them were trying to block him, and he didn't even have a chance to duck. They fell on top of him, burying him in the thick grass. Touch football meant no tackling, but it didn't mean no blocking. Luckily, his teammates tagged the runner before he got very far. McCoy stood up and looked angrily at his grass-stained jumpsuit. Now they had made him mad. McCoy chose to play pass defense. He would let somebody else smash into the big guys at the line. The first-year cadets tried to run on their first play, and Travolta tagged the runner at the goal line. The upper-class team hooded in victory, but that was only one play. "It's hard to run and touch football," thought McCoy. "It's time they'll try a pass." "The wide out!" McCoy shouted as the younger cadets broke from their huddle. "You take him!" yelled Wainwright. McCoy looked at the muscular cadet across from him. It was one of those who had blocked him on the kickoff. The sandy-haired cadet looked like a born athlete, and McCoy wasn't sure he could win a foot race with him, but he was sure the pass was going to go right at him. The ball was hiked, and the young cadet streaked down the side of the lawn. McCoy tried to stay ahead of him, but it was a losing proposition. Just as the ball was thrown, McCoy stuck out his leg and tripped the freshman. The ball sailed harmlessly over their heads. "Hey, you tripped me," complained the cadet as he jumped to his feet. McCoy shrugged. "It's hard to play out here in the moonlight. Sometimes your feet get tangled up." "Yeah, right," grumbled the kid. The next play, they tried to sweep around the side, away from McCoy. The runner had good blocking, and he made 20 meters before Wainwright pushed him off his feet. That was the trouble with touch football. The touch could get a little hard. The next play was going to be another pass. McCoy could feel it. He saw the sandy-haired cadet he had tripped. He was lining up in the backfield. McCoy would have to cover somebody else, but he was sure that the ball was going to the cocky young cadet. When the ball was snapped, McCoy ignored the man he was supposed to cover and raced across the field to try to break up the pass. He was too late, as a muscular cadet raced by the defender and caught the ball in stride. McCoy had good position, but the kid danced left and right, trying to fake him out. McCoy finally threw himself at the kid's feet, and he trampled him, and just kept running. "Hey, I touched you," groaned McCoy from the ground. The young man ran back and grinned at him. "Yeah, you were lucky." "Come on, let's stop them," yelled Wainwright. "Hey, McCoy, get there faster next time." "He wasn't even my man," grumbled McCoy as he picked himself up. The underclass dorm put in almost a whole new team for the next series of plays. 3 plays later, they scored a touchdown on the panting upperclassmen. "Uh-oh," thought McCoy. "This could be a long night." But at least they were going to get the ball, finally. The freshman kicked off, and the ball sailed over McCoy's head to the man behind him. He looked around for somebody to block, and there was that same cocky freshman. McCoy tried to block him, but he never laid a finger on the kid. The upper-class dorm finally got a chance to score. In the huddle, Wainwright looked directly at McCoy. "Line up right and go long. Milkins, you go short across the middle. Letchmore, you go to the flats and wait. You're the dump-off man. Everyone else, block." McCoy was not surprised when he lined up and saw the same muscular, sandy-haired cadet lining up across from him. "Well, it was time to show this kid a thing or two." Wainwright grunted a few times, and the center hiked the ball. McCoy started toward the middle, then broke toward the outside. He hoped that would fake out the kid, but he was right with him, step for step. Wainwright had to throw it to the short man, who only made a few yards. The young cadet was smiling at McCoy. "Doesn't look like they want to throw it to you." "Probably not," agreed McCoy. "You can take it easy." When he got back to the huddle, he told the quarterback, "My guy is sort of short. Let me come back for it and throw it to me high." "Right," agreed Wainwright. Same play. Let's block this time." They lined up again, and McCoy tried not to even look at the young cadet who was dogging him. At the snap, he ran straight down the middle, and the defender was running right with him. Then McCoy stopped short and took a few steps back. Wainwright was looking at him, and he cut loose with the ball, high as expected. The unlucky freshman had to skid to a stop and double back. He didn't have much energy to jump, and McCoy plucked the ball off his fingertips and cradled it to his chest. He was running down the field, thinking it was TD time, when he heard what sounded like a bull behind him. McCoy peered over his shoulder to see the cocky kid coming hard. In the cool air, he was snorting steam, and his arms and legs were churning like an engine. The freshman was gaining, so McCoy dashed for the sidelines. Only there weren't any sidelines, because this wasn't a real field. So he ran off the lawn toward a fence. His pursuer kept coming, and he leapt at McCoy. He thudded into McCoy's midsection, and the two of them crashed through a row of hedges. They rolled up against the fence, with McCoy wheezing and gasping for breath. At once, shrieking sirens started to blare, and the area was bathed in throbbing pink light. "You idiot!" snapped McCoy. "I'm sorry," said the kid. "I forgot it was touch, not tackle." "I was stupid enough, but then you ran into a security fence." "What?" McCoy threw the football, and it bounced off an invisible force field. The freshman stood up and ran his hands along the barrier, which twinkled at his touch. "We're in trouble," said the young cadet. "No kidding." With a groan, McCoy sat up and gazed past the broken shrubbery at the lawn. The other players had run for it. He couldn't see any of them. This close to winter break, who wanted to stick around and get into trouble? He wagged his finger at the young cadet. "If you're going to wash out of the academy, that's fine with me. But next time, leave me out of it." "Maybe there's a way out of this mess." The freshman gave him a boyish grin. McCoy could only scowl as red-shirted security forces surrounded them. He saw one phaser, but most of the officers had tricorders and were scanning the intruders. "Starfleet Security," said a stern voice. "Identify yourselves." "Cadet Leonard H. McCoy, Medical Branch. Cadet James T. Kirk, First Year." Starfleet Academy, Aftershock, Chapter 2. The next day went as badly as possible, with McCoy doing poorly on his stasis exam, he was sure. He was barely awake after spending most of the night in the custody of Starfleet Security. Then he had the entire day to dread his appointment with Admiral Ibarra. The superintendent of Starfleet Academy had his office inside a clear pyramid on the roof of Quadrangle C. Interior walls gave the impression of building blocks that didn't exist because the outer walls were smooth. McCoy paused as he got off the lift and stared at the imposing structure. The door of another lift opened behind him, and McCoy turned to see Cadet Kirk stroll jauntily off. The idiot actually smiled at McCoy as if he were glad to see him. "What are you so happy about?" growled McCoy. Kirk shrugged. "I've never met Admiral Ibarra before. This is a chance to impress him." "Impress him?" roared McCoy. "You're here because you crashed into a security fence in the middle of the night. They don't give medals for that." The cadet smiled confidently and strode toward the gleaming pyramid. The doors opened at his approach, and McCoy hunched his shoulders and followed him in. They came to attention in front of an ensign in the lobby, and she pointed them toward the Admiral's inner office. McCoy glanced upward at the clear ceiling, which softly filtered a gray San Francisco day. He could tell by the slope of the ceiling that they were delving deeper into the pyramid toward its center. Kirk bravely led the way, marching to his own funeral, thought McCoy. They both slowed to enter the center of the pyramid, where 4 translucent walls met at a pinnacle overhead. The ceiling was so high that the office felt like a cathedral. The meticulous admiral had added to the pyramid's design with lots of stark, clear furniture. McCoy would have been afraid to sit on any of it. Ibarra was a small man of Eurasian descent. He sat at his translucent desk going over some documents with a female captain. He ignored McCoy and Kirk, but she glanced at them with mild curiosity. The admiral and the captain conversed in low tones until they finally agreed. "At ease," said the admiral. "This is Captain Verena, and we've been discussing your misconduct." "Permission to speak, sir," asked Kirk. The admiral peered at him through sharp black eyes. "If you're going to make some kind of excuse, you can forget it. That was a sensitive research and development site you crashed into. Even if it was accidental, it was still a breach of security, and we take a dim view of breaches of security." He stared from Kirk to McCoy. Do I make myself clear?
Yes, sir,
they both answered. Kirk snapped his mouth shut. The Admiral folded his hands in front of him. Seeing as the two of you have so much excess energy, perhaps it would be a good idea if you volunteered for one of our service clubs. Captain Verena has a few suggestions. The woman cleared her throat. Cadet McCoy, the Disaster Relief Service Club is in particular need of medics. You qualify with your pre-medical training, and we are conducting training classes next week during the break.
McCoy gasped. You mean I wouldn't get to go home during break?
Cadet, said Admiral Ibarra, Starfleet is about duty. The Disaster Relief Service Club is in urgent need of medics. It's a dirty, dangerous job, but you get to save lives. Moreover, I would think that the break wouldn't be enjoyable knowing you have disciplinary action looming over your heads. Am I right?
Yes, sir,
answered McCoy, snapping to attention.
I volunteer.
The Admiral nodded with approval. There is a membership drive going on now in Quadrangle A. Report over there and sign up. I'll do disaster relief too, offered Kirk. Captain Verena smiled slightly. No, Cadet Kirk, we have another service club that is also dirty and dangerous. Would you like to try that?
Yes, sir,
said Kirk proudly. Good. She nodded with approval. I'll put you down for mess duty. Report to the kitchen. Kirk gulped.
The kitchen?
Mess duty? Yes, and I like my potatoes sliced thin, added Ibarra.
But, sir, this Sawbones gets exciting duty and I get kitchen duty. It isn't fair.
The Admiral stiffened in his chair. Let me tell you something, mister. There's nothing fair about Starfleet. Today you may get mess duty, and tomorrow you may be the youngest captain in the fleet. You have to take the good with the bad. Dismissed. McCoy and Kirk hustled out. Heads downcast, they strolled through the pyramid until they were outside on the roof again, both of them glum and deep in thought. Kirk pounded his fist into his palm. I'm going to take over that kitchen and turn it into the best kitchen Starfleet Academy ever had.
Good for you, said McCoy. Meanwhile, you ruined my winter break, and I won't get home again for 8 months, if then. I needed to spend some time with my dad.
Homesick, huh? Kirk nodded sympathetically. You have to get over that.
Oh, listen to the voice of experience.
They stopped at the lift that went to ground level. McCoy let Kirk get on, then he stepped back. You're not coming with me? Asked the young cadet.
No, said McCoy. I never want to see you again. You're nothing but trouble.
It might be hard to avoid me. See you around, Sawbones. The lift door shut on James T. Kirk and took him out of McCoy's life forever, or so he hoped. The dejected cadet made his way to Quadrangle A, where the recruiting drive for the service clubs was taking place. He still couldn't believe he was going to be stuck in San Francisco over winter break. Not only that, but he had probably done badly on the stasis exam. Maybe Starfleet wasn't the place for him after all. McCoy tried to concentrate on the words of Admiral Ibarra. Disaster relief is a dirty, dangerous job, but you get to save lives. Wasn't that the reason he wanted to be a doctor? Then what was he complaining about? Maybe it would be fun. At least it sounded better than kitchen duty. But he couldn't stop thinking about the lost opportunity to go home. He was frightened by the course he was on, a course that would take him into space, to far-off worlds. Maybe his yearning for home was his heart telling him that he was making a mistake. Maybe he just wanted to see friendly faces and sleep under his old quilt. The worst of it was that they were expecting him, and he would have to call to tell them he wasn't coming. McCoy's spirits were still low when he followed several other cadets into the lobby of Quadrangle A. 4 color-coded elevators surrounded him and branched off toward different dorm towers, but he was looking for the recruiters. He was thinking that he might as well get it over with. He found directions on the information console, which told new members to go to the recreation room. McCoy went down a flight of stairs and found himself in a game room that had everything from ping-pong tables to 3-dimensional chess. Card tables and signs were set up for the various service clubs. He saw the Mechanics Club, which recycled old equipment into useful stuff. There was also the Hospice Club, which visited sick and elderly people. There was another club to work on archaeological digs, one running a food drive, another planting trees, and many more. Seeing all this goodwill, McCoy wondered why he had never volunteered for a service club before. He knew they existed and that they did good work, plus they looked good on one's record. But he had always been so wrapped up in his own problems that he had never had time to volunteer, or so he thought. McCoy was finally feeling good about this sudden turn of events when he spotted the table for disaster relief. As he strode closer, he only saw one person at the table, a tall, dark-haired cadet who looked very somber. Then McCoy spotted the pointed ears and odd skin tone, and he stopped short.
Was that a Vulcan?
He hadn't talked to any Vulcans before, although he had seen a few of them around campus.
Did they really have green blood?
He wondered. McCoy put on a cheerful face as he approached the table.
I'd like to sign up,
he added nervously.
In fact, I have to sign up if you get my drift.
The Vulcan raised an eyebrow, but gave him no other expression. This is a volunteer club. Would you like me to tell you about it?
McCoy lowered his voice. There's no need. The Admiral suggested I sign up.
Are you volunteering or not? Asked the solemn Vulcan.
No, I didn't volunteer,
answered McCoy, getting angry as he thought about what had happened to him.
It was all the fault of that stupid freshman Kirk.
Then you should not join. This is a volunteer service club, and to join against your will is illogical.
McCoy blinked in amazement. What kind of cockeyed bubble-brain thinking is that?
It is called logic.
Listen, do you have a name?
Yes, I do. Spock.
Okay, Cadet Spock. Does this service club need medics?
Yes, we're in dire need of medics.
Well, I'm a medical student. I already have most of the training, so go ahead and sign me up.
Vulcan held up an electronic clipboard. We have a volunteer form, and only volunteers are allowed to fill it out. You do not appear to be a volunteer.
McCoy was sputtering now. Listen, you pointy-eared popinjay, what would it take for you to let me join?
A full understanding of what you are joining, answered the Vulcan. Before choosing disaster relief, I studied every service club thoroughly. This club makes the most effective use of Academy resources and personnel. Even so, we have been understaffed for 4.3 years, resulting in a 12% decrease in efficiency from our peak performance.
Good help is hard to find,
McCoy grumbled. Spock nodded. Precisely. Certain aspects of this club repel volunteers, such as the rigorous training and the likelihood of being called to a dangerous mission any time. All volunteers should be aware that there is a danger and grueling work involved.
You make it sound real attractive, said McCoy. What do I care if the superintendent of the academy likes me or not? I can always be a small-town doctor somewhere.
The Vulcan added, Last year we saved 312 lives on 5 different planets.
By George, exclaimed McCoy. That sounds like a logical thing to do. Okay, I volunteer.
Spock offered him the clipboard and a stylus. You are aware that the first week of winter break is devoted to training. McCoy's shoulders slumped.
Yes, I know that. Do you think we can go home for the second week?
I presume so, but you should ask Captain Rayleus, our faculty advisor. McCoy nodded and finished filling out the form.
What's the training like?
I do not know. I will be taking the training for the first time myself.
And you're the recruiter?
McCoy shook his head.
No wonder they can't get anybody to sign up.
I am merely filling in, answered Spock.
I know what you mean,
said McCoy. Just as he was about to walk away, an attractive female cadet strolled up to the table. She had beautiful brown hair, and she smiled pleasantly at both of them. My name is Lisa Donald, and I'd like some information on disaster relief. We have been understaffed for 4.3 years, said Spock, resulting in a 12% decrease in efficiency from our peak performance evaluation. McCoy stepped in front of the Vulcan and turned on the Southern charm.
What my friend is trying to say, Lisa, is that we really need you to volunteer, but only if you want to save lives, go to exotic places, and take a few risks. We do all the things you joined Starfleet to do.
That sounds great, said Lisa Donald. What's the training like?
Oh, it's fun, claimed McCoy. It only takes a week, and there's lots of fresh air and exercise.
Spock nodded thoughtfully. There will be considerable exercise. I'll sign up, said Lisa. Spock handed her the clipboard. McCoy smiled at the young lady.
Wise choice. Can I buy you a cup of coffee to celebrate?
Not right now, thanks. I'm meeting my boyfriend.
You're meeting with your boyfriend, said McCoy glumly. Did you ever have one of those days when you should have stood in bed?
Spock raised an eyebrow. Standing in bed sounds like a pointless exercise.
It's not pointless, said McCoy. If I stood in bed last night, none of this would be happening to me now.
That is illogical, said Spock. Your present would have occurred to you no matter what your posture in bed last night.
You're as dense as a 2x4, McCoy accused the Vulcan. Have you listened to anything I said?
Excuse me, said Lisa. I've got to get going. We don't always argue like this, do we? No, answered Spock. Under normal circumstances, we are too busy. Good. Lisa handed Spock the clipboard and hurried off. See you around.
McCoy shook his head and sighed. My luck has got to change sometime, doesn't it?
There is no such thing as luck, replied Spock. It is illogical.
McCoy rubbed his eyes. Let me see if I can get a straight answer out of you. Is there a booth where I can call home?
The Vulcan pointed to an alcove in the corner. Over there, I believe.
Thank you,
said McCoy with an exaggerated bow. The medical student twisted his hands as he walked toward the communications booth. How was he going to phrase this to his father? He couldn't make it sound as if it was his idea to stay in San Francisco over the break, but he didn't want to explain exactly why he had volunteered. He settled into the booth and looked at the screen. Even though there was no door on the booth, noise inhibitors blocked out the sounds from the recreation room.
Computer, he said. I'd like to call a number in Georgia.
He gave the number and settled back in his chair. Your name and account, asked the computer. McCoy answered with his name and his Academy account. He still had plenty of credit to make calls, as he hardly made any. McCoy twisted nervously in his seat as he waited to be connected. He still didn't know what he was going to say. When his father's lined, cheerful face appeared on the screen, he nearly began to cry.
I have bad news, Dad, he blurted out.
You didn't flunk out, did you? His dad asked with concern.
Not yet, answered McCoy, but I can't come home over the winter break, at least not until the end of it.
McCoy's father looked even sadder than when he thought his son was flunking.
Oh, I see. Well, everybody will be disappointed. What have you got, some extra studies? Not exactly.
McCoy had never been good at lying, especially to his dad. It was a family trait to stick with the truth.
Dad, I got in trouble for doing something stupid. To make amends, I joined a service club, disaster relief, and we have training next week.
A smile creased his father's face.
Disaster relief can get pretty rough. You take care of yourself, son. There'll always be lots of other times we can be together. Yeah, I guess so.
McCoy wasn't so sure about that. After medical school, Starfleet could ship him off to the farthest corner of the galaxy, and his dad wasn't getting any younger.
As soon as the training is over, he promised, I'll let you know if there's any chance of me getting home. Just do a good job and make us proud of you.
The older man must have seen something in his son's eyes because he asked,
Are you happy there? No, not really, admitted McCoy. But I've made too many mistakes already, so I'm going to stick it out at the Academy. I don't want to fall behind again. It doesn't matter where you finish the race, said his dad, only that you finish it. Don't worry about us. We'll save you some catfish.
McCoy smiled.
Thanks, Dad. My love to everybody. Goodbye.
Bye, Leonard. His dad smiled, but his lower lip quivered a bit. The cadet turned off the computer and the screen went blank. He sat staring at the dark phosphorus for a moment, wondering if he would ever know what he really wanted. He hadn't gone home for years, so why should he be so upset about missing this trip? What did he really want? All of space or a small town in Georgia? It just seemed as if there wasn't enough time to do anything. Not enough time to study, to visit his family, or figure out where he was going with his life. How could someone even find the time to have a girlfriend? His luck had to get better, decided McCoy. Despite what the Vulcan had said, he knew there was such a thing as luck. Right now, his was all bad.